Hey everyone, welcome back. To start, let's talk about the record-breaking warmth we saw today, particularly across Texas and much of the eastern U.S. Temperatures were well above normal, with some areas experiencing highs that felt more like early summer than midwind. The coldest air remains locked up to the north, sitting over Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, with even more frigid temperatures settled across southwestern Canada. High temperatures across the western U.S. will also significantly warm, with widespread 70s and 80s, especially in the desert, southwest, Southern California, and Arizona. But change is coming, and it all begins tonight as temperatures start to cool. While the Southwest will still hold on to relatively mild overnight lows in the 50s and 60s, Montana will be facing extreme cold with temperatures dropping below zero and wind chills pushing as low as 20 to 25 degrees below zero. If you're in Montana and heading out early Tuesday morning, be sure to bundle up in multiple layers, as frostbite can set in quickly under such conditions. Meanwhile, the central U.S. also saw incredible warmth, particularly across Texas, where some locations reached near 90 degrees this afternoon. However, a strong temperature gradient was in place, with northern Kansas only reaching the 30s while areas just to the south soared into the 80s. As we move into Tuesday morning, much of the northern plains and upper Midwest will be sitting in the single digits or even below zero, with the cold lines stretching down into South Dakota, southern Minnesota, and north central Wisconsin. Areas that were near 90 degrees today will wake up to temperatures in the 40s, marking a dramatic shift from the summer-like conditions of the previous afternoon. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. The eastern U.S. also enjoyed very mild conditions today, with the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic seeing highs in the 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Further south, Florida was basking in the 80s, while Maine, which has seen bouts of extreme cold recently, enjoyed a bit of a reprieve with temperatures in the 20s. However, by tomorrow morning, much of the Northeast will be back to the single digits and teens for lows, though this still represents a relatively warm air mass for Maine compared to the bitter cold that has dominated much of the winter. Southeast and Ohio Valley will hold on to mild overnight temperatures, ranging from the 40s in northern areas to the 60s further south. A sharp temperature contrast remains in place, with northern parts of the Ohio Valley dropping into the 20s, while the southern portion holds steady in the low to mid-30s. Looking ahead through the rest of the week, the mild air across the south and southeast will persist, thanks to steady southwest fall-off. This will allow warmth to continue surging northward ahead of approaching storm systems, keeping much of the eastern half of the country on the warmer side of things. This trend is expected to last all the way through Super Bowl weekend, with the potential for a cold front to sweep through on Super Bowl Sunday, finally nudging the warm air mass further off the southeast coast. Out west, the Pineapple Express is bringing heavy precipitation, creating significant travel troubles in higher elevations due to heavy snow, while lower elevations, particularly in Northern California, are dealing with flooding concerns. This pattern will continue through Tuesday, with precipitation pushing further south by midweek. By Wednesday, rain and snow will reach central California, including the foothills and the Sierra Nevada, before eventually spreading into Southern California, including the Los Angeles area. This is a welcome sight for regions that have been plagued by wildfires and prolonged dry conditions, though the amount of moisture remains uncertain. By Thursday, another storm system will arrive right on the heels of the first, bringing even more precipitation to central and Southern California, with heavier snowfall expected in the Sierras. By Super Bowl weekend, high pressure should take over, shutting off the precipitation and allowing drier conditions to settle in. Rainfall totals in Northern California could exceed 6 to 12 inches, adding to the already significant totals that have fallen in recent days. Meanwhile, areas farther south, including Los Angeles and San Diego, could pick up around an inch of rain, providing much needed moisture to parched landscapes. Snowfall in the Sierras could be substantial, with some areas potentially seeing an additional 70 to 80 inches by the end of the week. Heavy snowfall is also expected across portions of Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and Colorado. Meanwhile, in the central and eastern U.S., winter weather will begin to ramp up. A quick-hitting snow event is expected across interior New England this evening, affecting parts of upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. By midweek, a more impactful storm system will develop, bring a mix of snow, freezing rain, and rain across the Midwest. Northern Missouri could see an icy start by Wednesday morning, with the freezing rain threat shifting north into Iowa, northern Illinois, and northern Indiana by the afternoon. Snowfall will be heaviest where the coldest air resides, across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the upper peninsula of Michigan, while areas to the south remain in the warm sector, experiencing heavy rain and possibly even thunderstorms. By Thursday, a second storm system will take shape, bringing another round of winter weather, particularly in eastern Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland, where cold air damming could lead to an extended period of freezing rain. Heading into Friday, yet another system will develop across the plains, following a similar track to the previous storms. This means more snow to the north, freezing rain near the storm track, and additional rain and potential severe weather in the south. With each successive system, heavy rainfall is becoming a growing concern, particularly in Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and Tennessee, where 1 to 3 inches of rain could lead to localized flooding. The heaviest snowfall will remain confined to the northern tier, with the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Michigan potentially seeing 3 to 6 inches or more. New England, particularly upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine will also see significant snowfall totals. Beyond these immediate storm systems, we are closely watching a major pattern change that will unfold in mid-February. The stratospheric polar vortex is expected to undergo a disruption or even a full split, which typically leads to a spill of Arctic air into the United States. While this process takes 1 to 2 weeks to fully impact the lower atmosphere, signs are pointing toward a substantial blast of cold air arriving in the second week of February. How far south and how intense this cold air will be remains to be seen. But if we see temperatures plummet to the minus 50s across the northern plains, areas as far south as Texas could experience a significant cool down. Now let's talk about the weather systems coming in for the week ahead. A series of storm systems will be tracking across the country, and these are definitely going to bring more snow, rain, ice, and cold air. For much of the southeast, we're going to see a warm and mild push of air sticking around for a few more days. But by midweek, another cold front is set to move in. This will send temperatures plummeting once again, bringing in another wave of cold and snowy conditions that will be heading towards the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. These systems will continue to tap into moisture from the Pacific, which will cause major snow and rain events out west. California will be hit with another round of heavy precipitation, leading to flooding risks and significant snow in the mountains. The Sierra Nevada is expected to get slammed with up to 6 feet of snow in some areas, making travel treacherous. Northern California could see up to 12 inches of rain, and more snow is expected further inland in Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. As we head into the latter half of the week, the snow and rain threat will begin to migrate southward, affecting places like Southern California and Central California. Los Angeles and San Diego could see some much needed rain, though there's still uncertainty about just how much moisture will fall. But it's not all good news for the West. Even though the rain and snow will help with drought conditions, it's also causing a lot of travel problems and dangerous conditions in the mountain. By Thursday and Friday, another storm system will roll in, bringing more heavy snow to the mountains and more rain to the valleys. This could be a rough stretch for travel. So if you have any plans in these areas, be sure to stay updated. Meanwhile, back in Midwest and Northeast, the ice threat will increase as we move into midweek. Northern Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and northern Indiana are all at risk for freezing rain and sleet, which could cause hazardous travel conditions and power outages. Further north, heavy snow will continue to fall in Minnesota and Wisconsin, while further south, areas like Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia are looking at the potential for some heavy rain and even some thunderstorm. So depending on where you are, this week is going to bring a lot of different weather impacts. Just looking ahead to the weekend, things get even more interesting. Another storm system will be coming out of the plains and pushing eastward, bringing more snow to the north, more ice to the Midwest, and more rain and severe weather to the south. Snow line will be far to the north, and areas like the Dakotas, Minnesota, and parts of the Great Lakes will be buried in snow, while areas further south will be dealing with freezing rain and rain. Super Bowl Sunday is looking like it will be right in the middle of this active weather pattern, and we'll continue to track these storms closely as they develop. By the time we get to mid-February, we could be looking at even more winter storms, with the possibility of the stratospheric polar vortex splitting and pushing cold air into the U.S. This would bring Arctic blast, sending the coldest air of the season to parts of the country that haven't felt these kinds of temperatures yet this winter. The second week of February is shaping up to be a particularly cold one, with the potential for heavy snow and extreme cold temperatures across the northern and central U.S. Stay tuned, because I'll be keeping a close eye on all of these developments and providing continuous updates. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Don't forget to like the video, share it with friends and family, and leave a comment below if you have any questions or thoughts on the forecast. I'll be answering as many as I can, and I really appreciate your support. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next update.